Well, it's a lovely Friday, the 22nd of November in the year 2024. Thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight for this extraordinary edition of Diamond Live. We come on your screens every Monday and Friday. We do nothing but break down the day's biggest news stories. My name is Andrew Monsa, and obviously on Fridays, sometimes we make the show a little bit lighter as we get to look at some of the entertainment things that are happening in our country.
Well, thank you for joining us. My name is Cheswa Kapasa. Andrew, how have you been?
I've been extremely very well.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Well, because you're not in the country.
It's good to see you. It's good to...
You haven't been in the country.
To follow up on quite many critical, important topics. But like you say, would like to take it a little light today on the show and talking a bit of some music and what's going on in the circles of gospel music. But also, Andrew, I mean, members of parliament from the Patriotic Front demanding that government expedites the process of bringing Petauke Central Member of Parliament to Parliament within the 7-day ultimatum that Speaker Nelly Muti has given to Petauke Central MP. We do understand that he was captured in Zimbabwe, and the Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Mwimbu, just updating the nation on how that is going. I see a lot of by-elections this year, not to say that there will be one in Petauke, but I mean, there's already one in Kawambwa, and members of parliament, those participating in that election, just being warned or guided that they need to have a peaceful atmosphere ahead of the Kawambwa by-elections that are slated soon.
Obviously, noise yesterday characterized the nominations of the Kawambwa parliamentary by-election, where there was an exchange of words between the Electoral Commission of Zambia and the Tonse Alliance through their candidate from the National Congress Party. The Tonse Alliance felt that government wanted to differentiate them from participating in that particular election, but eventually they managed to field in a candidate in Kawambwa, very confident that they're going to win the seat. We know for a fact that this seat was necessitated by the arrest of Honorable Nixon Chilangwa, who is incarcerated, and obviously the fact that there's no bail bond for him, and bail pending appeal was denied for him, and that's why the Speaker of the National Assembly did declare that particular seat vacant, and the Electoral Commission of Zambia were given instructions to have an election there, but also another seat that is kind of looming to be next is the one belonging to Honorable Chitotela Pambashe, Member of Parliament as well. And so, Tuesday, the expectation is that JJ Banda presents himself before Parliament. If that should be before Tuesday. Yeah, before Tuesday. If that doesn't happen, then obviously there's going to be a by-election in Petauke Central. A lot of back and forth in terms of his status, whether he's been arrested or not. Government giving its position, but also we've seen that the Zimbabwean Authority, through its spokesperson of the police, stating that they don't have in custody Honorable JJ Banda. But government is consistent that they are speeding up the process of making sure that JJ Banda comes back to the country so that he faces the criminal charges that he's been arrested for. Right after this, we get to speak to two female politicians that are driving the agenda of female participation in the governance system of our country. But before we take that route into that conversation, we start the show today in a snap. Friday, it means that good music has to be listened to. Sometimes others listen to secular music, but others listen to gospel
I was
music.
watching you because you need to be careful
I
with
don't
what
want
you
to
say,
point
Andrew.
fingers. I don't want to point fingers. And that's why tonight we're privileged to be joined in by Eugene Sumbulelo, the CEO. He has done a new song with Kings Malembe called Shakapanga. You're going to be seeing that in the background in a little while. But we're privileged to have him tonight on the program, the CEO himself. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on Diamond Live tonight.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Obviously, the reason for why we've called you is because of not only powerful in terms of the message that you're trying to put across in this new song, but also it adds on to the growth, of Zambian music, Shakapanga. Let's begin off with what you're trying to communicate in the song. You feature Kings Malembe.
Yeah. All right. This song for me, it's actually a testimony. It's actually it's what God has done in my life, as in from the time I was born up to now. God has done a lot, and before I did Shakapanga, I also did Ekomwaba. If you can check, there's Ekomwaba, there's Panshakasuba, Tapaba Desanga Ngaena. So if you follow the messages, you find that they're not very far from each other. So I basically talked about who God is to me and what He has done, because I can assure you I went through tough things in life. I went through hell, and just 2 years, about 2 years ago, I was in deep poverty, serious one. As in, I was doing fine. Then I had to lose out a lot of things. I had to lose out my businesses and everything, and I went into the bush for 2 years, and I suffered a lot. So just 2 years ago, I was actually suffering. Now, what God did
When you say in the bush, do you mean that you didn't have shelter, or what circumstances led you to getting into the bush?
Exactly. When I say I went into the bush, I mean I was actually sleeping when you those charcoal burners, and I was actually burning charcoal, and I was sleeping mumbari ya chibiri. Yeah, nowhere to sleep, no room no shelter, no nothing. And just 2 years ago, and God showed me mercy. Now, in this song, I'm saying He is Shakapanga, He's the provider, He's God. No one can know Him. No one can tell you to say God is like this. He's actually the one who created us, and He can provide for us. So He provided for me, and He can provide for everyone. Those that are going through hell, that are going through tough things, one assurance I can give is that God will never fail anyone. And God showed me mercy. And today, I'm able to see that God can feed everyone. God can give everyone. Ululimbo Shakapanga nangu na ulwala shani nangu uliyurimpepi n'okufa. God will still give healing to someone.
What are you telling to people that are facing the similar problem that you face, but also there are people have come across people that would say, I don't think God does care about me. For example, one that loses the father, loses the mother, loses the wife. He says, is God punishing me? Well, some, they're just unlucky that they can't get a job, and they think maybe there's something that, they did to God, and God doesn't just come through, to them. What are you telling to so many people that could be passing through those challenges?
You know what? Just this afternoon, I was talking to someone to say, even me, at one point, I thought God was actually punishing me when I was going through what I was going through, because it was too much. The pain was too much. Do you know that I started buying clothes from DAP? And surely, thank God for DAP. DAP is there, and it's there for people. Surely, there are people who just go there to buy and to be helped. I was buying clothes from DAP for 3 kwacha, 5 kwacha. It was that bad. I'm not saying it's a bad arrangement, but I was that bad. Now, you asked me that question. I was telling someone today to say, you know, I thought God was not fair, and I thought God was punishing me, and I felt the pain. I was asking myself, God, what is it that I have done that umuntu mbita achitapo lube mbunshi olonabe mbwike? What sin did I commit for me to go through what I'm going through today? Because the pain was too much, sir. And thank God that God had to strengthen me, because even people ran away from me. Everyone ran away from me. And I remained alone in the bush for 2 years. Now, to answer the question, for me, in my situation, I have seen that it was God's doing. It never involved anyone. It never involved like people hated me or what. No, God had a plan for me. And God can have a plan for you out there. Don't even think, you know, maybe God has forsaken me or God will never come through for me. Whatever situation is Shakapanga.
You come through.
Is a God.
The choice of one that you featured is one that is quite interesting. Kings is obviously known to be this prominent, you know, Zambian gospel artist. Why the choice Kings, especially for this very particular song, Shakapanga?
All right. Even that, I think for me, it's Kings has been a friend. Yes, way back, I think 2007. Yes, and being a friend and looking at the way he is, most of the people that are not close to him, they may think otherwise, but the guy is very serious. He's actually very, very serious and committed to things. So when he approached me, actually, he told me, can we do a song together? Then I said, yeah, actually I have a song, which was created when I was going through what I was going through. And when God now brought me out of poverty and all that. So he said, I told him I have a song. And I said, okay, fine, can we do a song? It was not just for me. It wasn't me who just said, okay, I want to pick up Kings. No. He called me to say, can we do a song together? And I said, fine, I even have a song. And then we picked it from there.
I mean, he talks about something very important. He talks about coming out of poverty. I mean, even just the video looks very, I don't want to use the word expensive, but I also don't want to call you rich. I'll just ask if you're now a wealthy man.
What's a Friday?
Yeah, you're now a wealthy man.
Wow. The Bible says it gives power to make wealthy.
Yeah.
And this is what I've seen. God has just given me power to make wealth. And let me tell you the truth. I'm very confident that I'm a wealthy man today. Yes. If wealthy, I don't know how you can describe it, but I have seen the hand of God and I've seen where I'm going.
See you as we conclude. Is this the last song you're dropping for this year? Because there's only 1 month to go before next year, 2020. 2025. Are we expecting anything from you new, or this is the latest that we could get from CEO?
I like that. I like the fact that you're calling me CEO. That's all right. You expect actually a lot from me.
This year?
Expect a lot. Not this year, but next year. Yeah, we'll do a lot and we'll do some new songs. Even the old songs like Panshaka Suwai Komwaba, we are yet to repackage them and do something.
Eugene Sumbulelo, the CEO, thank you so much for making time to speak to the millions of Zambians and those that are joining us from Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia, where we're broadcasting live this program. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
I appreciate it.
You're joining us live on channel 27 on DSTV and channel 20 on GoTV. But also, thank you so much to those that are joining us via our Facebook page, that is Diamond TV Online. We're live on YouTube at Diamond TV Zambia. But also, you can be a part of the program by calling us on the number that is going to soon be reflecting on your screen. Now, the Coalition of Women in Politics was formed in 2023 by 15 civil society organizations, including women-led, youth-led, and community-based groups to address the low participation of women in politics right in our country, Zambia. Now, the coalition aims to coordinate efforts from civil society to promote women's representation and influence in politics, as there's still a low representation of women in parliament and local government. Now, the coalition members signed a pledge to commit to joint action, planning to achieve greater results. Civil society organizations working in isolation can lead to overlapping efforts, duplication of work, and even contradictory messaging. A unified approach helps prevent fragmentation and ensures cohesive strategy in pushing for women's political participation. The Center for Young Leaders in Africa, SILA, Zambia, among other things, coordinate the work of this coalition that was formed. Tonight, I'm privileged to be joined by two powerful women that have stood the test of time in terms of them standing up for the truth and speaking on issues that speak to the matters of women. I'm joined in by Daliso Mvula as well as Judith Nasibebo. Ladies, good evening. Thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight on Diamond Live.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Good evening.
Daliso, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me on Diamond Live tonight.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me here.
I was having a conversation with Cheso earlier on before we started that we've not had females come on the program in a long time. Coincidentally, I was talking to another presenter, Costa. He does a show called Costa, who is my boss as well. I produce for him, and he was telling me, "Sir, we've not had a female to feature on the show in a long time." But this is a concern across different media houses also. Very few women are called to speak on matters that do affect them, especially matters around governance. Maybe let's begin from there. Is it lack of unavailability of women, fear, or perhaps we are just not reaching out to you?
I honestly think you are just not maybe reaching out enough to us, because I think women have really stepped out of the closet and stepped out of the shadows in terms of being afraid of speaking for what they believe in and for what they stand for. And I feel like sometimes maybe let me not say it's the failure of reaching out. Sometimes it's just miscommunication. There are communication gaps between media and maybe women participating in politics and the likes. But women are available. They're definitely available, and especially we as young women, we are definitely available to speak on behalf of our fellow young women and our fellow women who are trying to pursue their political careers.
And obviously that's the reason for why you formed COWIP. And I'd like to find out, briefly what the main agenda for this coalition is, and from the time that you were formed in 2023, whether you're making strides to ensure that your objectives have been met.
Okay, so the coalition is an initiative that was formed by different organizations. So it was formed to make sure that women are supported, and also there is provision of mentorship for these women that are interested in politics, and also making sure that there is concerted efforts, because most of the time you find that there are a lot of duplicate of work. A lot of organizations are doing the same work over and over again. So to avoid the duplication of work, why don't we work together? So that's why the coalition was formed. So the coalition has also provided a lot of mentorship to young women in politics. I'm one of the beneficiaries, and also Daliso is also one of the beneficiaries. So earlier this year, the coalition, with support from Center for Young Leaders in Africa and also Green Forum, supported us with outreaches, where we conducted outreaches in 3 districts. That is Kitwe, Chipata, and Livingstone. So these community outreaches were meant to amplify women's voices and also reach out to the community to make sure that we hear what the community are saying about leadership, and especially when it comes to young people stepping up in taking part in leadership, and also making sure that persons living with disability are also included, because we are not just talking about young people, we're not just talking about women, but we're also talking about people living with disability that are interested in politics. So these outreaches were, I'll talk about my outreach. So the outreach was conducted in Southern Province in Livingstone. So the outreach was meant to make sure that a platform was a platform is created for young people to add their voice in politics and leadership, and also to help them boost their leadership and also research skills. So we had 3 activities from my end specifically. We had a secondary school debate, a public lecture, and also a radio outreach. So the school debate targeted secondary school students, particularly in a rural area, because we also didn't just want to look at the urban setup, but we're also recognizing the fact that even the rural areas also have a voice to add to the leadership system in our country. So the young people participated in a debate, which was basically talking to the role of young people in politics. What is the role of young? So every activity that was taken out was tied to that theme. So one of the motion was, does the promotion of sexual reproductive health right enhance participation of young people in politics? So after the outreach, after the secondary school debate, we also did a public lecture at David Livingstone College of Education. So the David Livingstone College of Education outreach was basically speaking to young people. How can young people participate in politics? How can young people make sure that they add their voice to matters that concern them? So we're also providing guidelines to those that were interested in joining political parties. How can they make sure that they influence policies? Yes, and from there we also talked about, we also looked at the radio.
What was the response to the young ladies you're asking whether they could join politics?
So we provided guidelines. We provided guidelines. The good part is that with our outreaches, we were very strategic about it. We also had invited some representatives from the government. We had councillors. So we had the councillors specifically from Walibon and Awad. So one of the ways was to refer them to the people in leadership in their location. And also traditional leaders were also...
Did the women feel the sense of being interested in joining these political parties?
We had in some success stories with 2 people that came up to ask for proper guidance, but it was a success.
Were you impressed with only 2 people?
We can do better, but it's something.
Speaking about the numbers, Dali, so currently the majority, we boast of the fact that the majority of our population is female, 51% is female, but looking at the representation in government and key positions, we only stand at around 20.05. What do you think have been the major barriers, to female participation in politics? You are a very good example, because recently you were just coming from UNZA, the highest learning institution, where you did participate in an election, and indeed you did win. And obviously you have a better story to tell in terms of the barriers that you would highlight that affect women participation in politics. What would you highlight as some of the key barriers that affect the participation of women in politics?
I think the first thing I would love to highlight is the fact that we have issues to do with cultural barriers and societal norms. I think we've heard so much that a woman belongs to certain areas. I won't say the kitchen, because it's no longer the kitchen. Now we can work, but we can't lead in certain areas. Women are too emotional, they can't take up certain spaces, they can't take up certain positions. And in all honesty, our country, Zambia, is very patriarchal, and we've seen this system at national level, even at grassroots level. I'll give an example of the University of Zambia. I think it would take a miracle to see a female president take up that position, a female take up that position. And these are things that really get to affect us. They will tell you, no, as a female, you can only stand for vice president. If you stand for this position, you can't win. And for real, I had the numbers, because I think it was a landslide victory for me when I stood for elections. But I knew very well, and I was even told, if you go for presidency, if you go for positions like presidency, vice presidency, you will not win, because these positions are for what? For the men. Men are not emotional. You're a woman. And those are some of the things that are really holding us back, because you find that there are women that are competent and have brilliant ideas that could help the country forge ahead. But because of such mindsets, we are held back. And then I'll talk about financial resources. I think we all know, in a realistic perspective, I don't mean to sound like backwards mindset. I have a backwards mindset, but men make more money than females do. The threshold for an income for a man versus a woman is so different. And when it comes to elections, you'll find that national elections or elections at grassroots level, you'll find that women have limited access to resources for campaigns. And then a man comes with his pockets loaded. On top of it, support from both women and men. How then do I compete as a woman? And then we have lack of support amongst ourselves as women. You'll find that your own fellow women don't even want you in that particular position. I remember going to campaign at Ruins and somebody was like, I can't vote for you. I'm like, why? And I went upstairs. I followed them upstairs. I'm like, why can't you vote for me?
Yeah.
Because you're a girl and girl somewhere. I'm like, oh, wow. So it's things like that. And these are things that happen even at national level. We have sexual harassment, sexual assault. You'll find that these are things that are not really talked about publicly, but there are certain opportunities, even when you're looking around for opportunities, if you can't lift your skirt, forget about that opportunity. And those are some of the major barriers that we need to really look into. Otherwise, as a country, I know we can definitely do better. We can improve. We've seen ourselves have female vice presidents after so many years, and I think we can also do better and see the number of females in parliament increase.
You spoke of something that is very important. I gave you statistics of the fact that currently the population of our country, those in majority are you women. You constitute about 51% of the total population. And I think one would now assume with common sense that if a female president contests as president of this country, women are going to rally behind, that woman. You've partially explained, around your situation at the University of Zambia. I'd like to find out from you why women can't support their fellow women.
Okay, so I actually believe that women support each other, but to a certain extent, I feel there's somewhere where they separate the women supporting each other movement, especially when it comes to leadership. And I tie this to society. Society raises us in a way that a woman is supposed to be heard and not seen. A woman is not supposed to make decisions. A woman is supposed to just listen to a man make decisions over her. So these are notions or norms that are brought up when you're very young.
Yeah.
You're brought up with that notion to say you're supposed to be in the kitchen. You're supposed to. So it's hard for somebody to break out from those values that you are taught. And I feel that's one of the reasons that is leading to women not supporting other women, because they were taught that a woman is supposed to be heard and not seen. Only a man is the head of the house. So that is one of the reasons. And I feel another reason is because most of the societies that we have in Zambia are so patriarchal dominant.
Yeah.
So patriarchy is a whole system that just favors men. So you find that when it comes to even headmen, they are the ones that are dominant in traditional setups. You can't find a head woman. You can find only headmen. And when it comes to traditional community gatherings, a woman in some societies, especially patriarchal dominant societies, a woman cannot start speaking. You can speak, but you cannot open the floor unless another man opens the floor. So it's these two more small things that leads to women not supporting other women. And I feel sometimes some of women just don't, for lack of better term, I'm sorry to say this, they just don't like other women progress beyond them.
But do you know where that comes from? We are taught to compete.
Exactly.
In most cases, as women, we are taught to compete. Growing up, you are taught you have to look so good because you have to impress a man. You have to look so good. we're taught to compete about such things. In most cases, as women growing up, we are taught to compete against each other.
Yes.
And I think that's something that was deliberately set in by the patriarchy system to make us believe that women can't support fellow women. But in actual sense, it's possible. We can support each other. And we've seen it within our spaces, within our corporate spaces. We've seen how women have been thriving, the CEOs, them Zingamelus.
Exactly.
What can stop us from pushing that as an agenda at national level? We can support each other.
And the worst part is when a woman rises up and she's doing amazing, the people will start saying, no, she's trying to compete against the men. And issues of her personal life now start surfacing on social media, especially in this era. You find that people are discussing about her marriage, her failed marriage, when we have a lot of men in leadership that have failed marriages, but nobody talks about them.
Yeah. I'd like to find out how, this lack of women inclusivity in politics has affected the socio-political development agenda of our country.
Okay, so the lack of women participation has affected the social development sector in the sense that there's no inclusion of women's voices in leadership, especially when it comes to policy making, in terms of policies that support movement of women. I can talk about sexual reproductive health rights. Most of the people that are affected are women, especially when it comes to maternal health. A lot of women suffer. A lot of women die due to complications tied to childbirth. But when the majority of policymakers are men, it becomes very hard for them to put in policies and also strengthen the existing policies that support that agenda. So meaning that the women in the community get to suffer. And when a lot of women suffer in the community, you find that there's loss of there's loss of life, there's loss of human capital, there's also loss of development, because these are breadwinners. We left with families that don't have breadwinners, which is a very bad thing. And another thing I feel, when it comes to intersectionality, you find that a lot of marginalized groups are also left behind, especially when it comes to persons living with disability. We have also women that are living with disability, such that there is lack of inclusion. And when I say inclusion, I mean accessibility of certain services. In a situation of education and also health, if a person living with disability goes to a hospital that does not have a ramp, meaning that the building is inaccessible. If a person living with disability goes to a school that has no lift, the only school that has a lift is School of Education. So you are somehow limited to take a certain course that you not want, simply because the only accessible building is the School of Education. So you find that it becomes a barrier in terms of education and also health, which is a very bad thing.
Political parties would disagree with you both, Judith and Dali, so that these are open spaces. Political parties are open spaces for anybody to join and anybody to participate in the democratic processes within these political parties. When you go to the Patriotic Front Secretariat, to the Democratic Party Secretariat, to the Citizens First and all these other political parties, the only time you find women is when they are singing for men. For the president who is a man. And when you ask them to avail you with a list of members of the Central Committee, you find only one or none women on that list of the Central Committee. But also they will tell you that it's because women don't want to volunteer themselves to join actively in these political parties. Would we be wrong to place the blame on you as women for this low participation of, because even at national level, it's not like there's a policy that says that women shouldn't participate. It's free for all. So shouldn't part of the blame be on you as women?
So I would say no, because some of these things are tokenistic in a way that most of the times when certain things are said, let's say, the door is open, but the handle is hot. You're saying the door is open, but the handle is hot. If I touch it, I get burnt. That's what usually happens for women. You go in an environment, you suggest you want to be adopted, but they'll say, no, you can't win, you can't pull votes, you won't campaign, your marriage will be destroyed, what. There are all these excuses. And we've seen that there are so many women, who have not been adopted. I just had a friend in the previous election. She wasn't adopted by a political party, by her own political party that she has been part of for so long. Because of what? She's a woman and they prefer the man over a woman. It's preference. There's always this sense of preference that, no, women can't take up these positions. And truthfully speaking, it is very discouraging. And definitely it is up to us as women to continue pushing for the agenda that we get adopted, because we don't want to just have positions in these political parties where we are just ticking the box. No, this is inclusion, it's gender inclusion, we've ticked the box. That's what it's mostly about. We don't see women holding relevant positions. Secretary General, Umwanakashi, political party, Mzambia. Where?
And part of this conversation has, I think, for so long, for you women that have been actively pushing for women participation in politics, you've been stating, a change in laws. You're now speaking about a quota system that will allow for some spaces to be deliberately set up for for women. I would love for you to speak to that, Judith, and how that could work out. And do you foresee this administration having a political will, to set up such systems that allow for women to be a part of the governance system?
Okay, thank you very much. I feel the 50-50 is actually a good initiative in the sense that not only is it only just going to be something that is going to be done by one person, but it's going to be done by the whole country, in the sense that when you cast a vote, you vote either for the president and other seats, but you also get to vote for separate seats that are reserved for persons living with disabilities and also women. And I feel this would work better in the sense that there are already votes. People have already said what is going to happen and how it is going to happen, which will determine how many seats will be reserved for these marginalized groups. And I feel it's a very good development, and I hope it passes. And that's what I can say about that.
Obviously, there are a number of key policy documents, the National Gender Policy and the 8th, National, Development, Plan that speak to government's commitment to gender, mainstreaming. For you, what are your expectations really, even with some of these documents?
I think when it comes to documentation, Zambia is really good on paper. For me, what I would love to see is implementation and systems of accountability set to see how this will work. Because we'll keep writing this, we'll keep suggesting these things, and not seeing them put into action is pointless and will waste time. Because the formation of these documents actually costs a lot of money, because there's the reviews, there's the validations, there's the involvement of civil society and other stakeholders to just come up with these documents, just for them to collect dust. I think that's something that we as young people and we as women should take keen interest in. And I think this would be a call to women to also take interest in these national affairs, because sometimes I feel like, because we've been so discouraged to find a lot of women take a back seat. I'll give an example on when I went to the Eastern region to implement one of the co-whip outreach programs. The women, this was a grassroots structure, a market structure. Not even one single woman was sitting in that market structure. And the women could barely speak. We literally had to promise them that we would hide their identities. That's when they started coming out. We went on radio with a woman to express herself, to give her an opportunity to express herself on what's been happening in these markets when it comes to structures and women being involved in decision-making around the market structures. She actually had to use a fake name just for her to feel safe and comfortable. It's that bad. And this is just at grassroots. Yeah. What's more at national level? And these are the things that we're talking about. We just can't have documents that are speaking to promoting gender inclusiveness in in our national affairs, in politics, and in anything that that is related to promoting women inclusion. But we want to see the implementation.
Do you think we've done pretty much okay as a country in terms of pushing the women agenda, especially in key positions of government? For example, both under this administration and under the previous administration, the Speaker of the National Assembly is a woman. The Vice President, the second most powerful person in this country, is a woman. And I could point at so many key, decision positions that have been given to women under this administration. Do you think this is a direction that we should be headed to, or we can do better in terms of appointments of women into these key positions?
Gratitude is definitely a must to the successes that have been made, but then we can definitely do better because we've never had a female cabinet secretary to cabinet. We've never had a female chief of defense in the history of Zambia, and those are the gaps that we're talking about. If we could look into some of these appointments, if we look into some of these gaps, and we could see how we can deliberately push women into these structures, starting from our political structures, grassroots structures, even the national structures, not just as not those tokenistic positions where women can actually give in their views and make decisions that help promote the nation. So I feel like there's still need for more deliberateness in terms of promoting inclusion for women. We definitely thank the government for the efforts made so far, but I believe we can do better, especially knowing the fact that 2026 is around the corner, and we expect to see more political parties, including the ruling party, take up the action of promoting women inclusiveness in politics.
Judith, you earlier spoke of the community activities you've been having and speaking to different women around encouraging them to join, political, parties. What were their response in terms of what they understand about politics? Because there's been a historical concern of politics being a dirty game, and that's a reason for why women would not want to participate, in this dirty game. What are some of the other concerns that women had in joining, active politics?
Okay, so for our activity, our target audience was specifically young people in secondary schools and also young people in tertiary education. So the young women, yes, are the ones that I can speak to at the moment. So there are certain concerns like some of the barriers. You'd find that there are a lot of there are a lot of barriers in terms of they cannot access information. They cannot access information on where to find their ward councillor, for instance, where to find their political parties, what political party can they really join. So in the sense that a lot of things happen in political parties in the sense that young people are used as vices of violence. So most of the time, especially when it comes to David Livingstone College of Education, it's more like a reserved institution, and it's only for teachers, and mostly teachers are non-partisan. And that was also another concern in the sense that if I'm going into the teaching profession, it means I cannot go into active politics. So how do I navigate my political aspirations and also continue with my career? So that were some of the barriers that we faced. And when it comes to political parties, a lot of people that are already in those political parties somehow block the young people from joining. So there's one person who actually, a young man, since it was just young people, came and said there are a lot of people that are already in political parties feel threatened by young people joining politics, more like maybe they'll take the shine and whatnot. And it blocks them from joining these political parties because you are being seen as a threat to this person who's been in this political party for a very long time. And we provided guidance in terms of them actually knowing, you have to know your ward councillor, you also have to know what political party to join. You have to take an assessment. You can't just say, I want to join this political party, but you have to also know why you want to join politics. Yes. So.
Do you think the current crop of female politicians are inspiring to young women there that would love to join, politics? When we speak about those that are actively involved, obviously elected members of parliament, from those that want to contest as presidents, we've got about 2 or 3. We've got Shalakateka, we've got Savoy Imboila, we've got FDD President, Madam Edith Nawakwi. Do you think those that are in the political space, especially at the highest form, even the Vice President of this country, Madam Mtaina Lumango, do you think they've provided enough inspiration for these women, to join, politics? From your assessment, the current crop of our politicians, do you think they've provided enough inspiration?
I would honestly love to commend the women because it takes a lot. I mean, there's always somebody fighting them. There's always somebody shooting at them. There's always somebody attacking them. You never see these sorts of attacks towards male politicians. But should a woman express even the slightest sense of mistake or slightest incompetence, it is war. It is war. So I think they've definitely inspired us because it takes a lot of mental strength. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of focus. It really does take a lot of courage to stay in those positions and be brave. Because while other people are attacking you, you still have to focus on the fact that you are leading the nation, and you have to lead those same people that are attacking you, those same people that are looking down on you, those same people that are fighting you. So those are some of the things that I would really love to commend our current leaders on. And I've had the privilege of interacting with some of these female politicians that are sitting in parliament, and those women are doing great work. They're doing great things. I know it might not be loud because it's not drama. There's no drama. There's no gossip. There's no funny business involved that can trend. But when you go and see what they're doing in their wards, when you sit down and look at what they're doing in their constituencies, you'll see that these women are really doing great work, and they're taking time to inspire young people.
Yes, and when it also comes to mentorship, I wouldn't speak for anyone else, but I would like to also commend Shalakateka and also Princess Kasuno, because we've interacted with them as the coalition. They've actually come to one of our mentorship sessions when it comes to intergenerational dialogue. So they've come to us and also provided their insight in women in leadership, and also some of the barriers that they faced in order for us to also learn from them how they dealt those barriers, and also advise us to also reach out to them, especially Shalakateka, looking at the fact that she is running for president, and she is actually open to people coming in her political party.
Let's talk about breaking barriers. Where do we begin? From one of the things that you spoke about, Deliso, was the fact that you lack finances as women to be able to foot, campaigns, and all that. Where do we begin from in terms of breaking these barriers? Because we've got the next big election in the next couple of months. How are you preparing your fellow women? What are you doing to break these barriers to ensure that at least we see, an increased number of women participate in the next election?
Most definitely. I think the biggest thing that I would say to anybody who's listening in and has aspirations of standing in these forthcoming elections is start preparing your resources now. Network and mobilize resources. If it means getting a resource mobilization person on board, have them on board. They can help you gather some resources. And then sometimes your networks are what help you. So it's important to build strong networks with relevant individuals that can contribute to your campaign. And then the other thing is competency. Personally, I always say this. This is what I always say. It's important that even as we are vying for these seats as women, we have to be competent, because we're not just fighting for seats at the table, but we want to show that we are competent, we are capable, and we have the capacity to lead the nation. The other thing is, it's important that we make allies we become allies with the men. We can't do this without the men. We can't do this without the men. It's not a competition, it's not a war. What we want is to work with the men in terms of promoting gender equality. We have men at the table, we have women at the table. And the challenge is every time women start this advocacy of gender equality and inclusion in politics, it feels like an attack maybe on the men, but that's not the case, and we don't want them to take it like that. We want them to know that we want to work with them, we want to work together, because this is about progressing the national agenda and seeing Zambia be at its best. We're at 60, soon we'll be at 100. What are we going to be looking back at? What are we going to be looking back to? Yes, we got our independence, but there's so many things that we need to get freedom from. We need our economic freedom. We need to break out of certain glass ceilings that still are in existence currently. So I think those are some of the main things, and I'll emphasize on this. Capacity, capacity, capacity. Women, build your capacity. Even when you're spoken to, even when you're asked to address something, you should be able to articulate yourself in a way that your listeners are inspired and they have that zeal to want to support you. It shouldn't be just a thing of saying, we want women, so we are ticking the box because it's women. No, I want to be voted for because I am Daliso, I have the capacity, and you believe in my vision for the nation.
The Kamba by-election is happening on the 20th of December. We've had so many by-elections previously during the course of this year. Very few women. In fact, for this Kamba by-election, I was looking at the list from the Electoral Commission of Zambia. No woman on that particular list. Are you worried, Judith?
It's worrisome because championing gender equality requires that each and every woman takes up leadership position, and leadership position also make sure that you step up for leadership. You can't just talk about leadership inclusion without stepping up. It's worrisome. I hope women also, I'm big on learning, so I hope that women learn and relearn and make sure that they also learn from others. And I hope in the next election, in the next by-election, or in the next election, they would step up and be on the ballot. But I'm also thinking mentorship, because I feel most of the time people get stuck with where they are coming from, what they've learned from society.
Yeah.
So they grew up with those societal norms to say you cannot be a leader, you can only listen to what other people say. So this gets to affect people's capacity to take up leadership position, and mostly I feel it becomes fear just, especially when it comes.
How should women begin to position themselves? Because I think the adoption process by a political party is very simple. You must be popular, people must know you, and you must at least be involved in some community service, because then that's how people are going to know you.
Yeah.
But if you ask these political players, they'll tell you that it's only men that do that. And for us as a political party, we're looking to win an election. We need someone popular. And not, if someone is popular as a woman, then we're going to get them. But if those who are popular men, then we have no option but to pick someone who's popular. What are you telling women tonight, Dallas?
I'm definitely going to say this. Well, this is a call to the coalition as well. I think with the coalition that has been formed, the Coalition for Women in Politics, I think it's coming at a very strategic time where they are mentoring women. And this coalition is not just for the elites. By the way, we are going down to the grassroots to educate women to step up when it comes to putting themselves out there. We are going beyond just keeping things in the rooms, the air cons and the likes. We are going outside there and telling people at the grassroots what to do, what they need to do, how they need to strategically position themselves. And then I think it's important. You cannot be forced to get into this thing, but it's important for you to also have the courage to put yourself out there. There are many women who have capability, who have leadership skills, and most women have leadership in them. It's just a matter of cultivating that courage and changing mindsets. And I think the coalition has the aim to do that. We want to provide capacity, we want to enhance competency, and we want to help women with both resources and with the necessary skills to strategically place themselves out there.
Mvula, Judith Nasibebo, thank you so much for making time to speak to the nation tonight on Diamond Live.
Thank you so much for having us.
We'll be looking at breaking barriers and empowering young women to step into the politics, but also we'll be looking at some of the ways that could be potentially used to make sure that we increase women participation in politics. On behalf of the entire production crew, my name is Andrew Mwansa. See you on Sunday for Costa, Monday for another edition of Diamond Live, and Tuesday for This Day with Digindaba John Buyoya. Good night for now.